Colorado Senator Mark Udall was recently the aisle-crossing advocate for the President's State of the Union address, and now his focus is on the legislative session ahead.
We recently sat down with Senator Udall for an exclusive interview. This week, he talks about his work to ensure that Colorado continues to lead in areas like clean energy and aerospace. Senator, let's talk about fiscal spending and discipline.
Yes.
Tell us about what you have done and plan to do to help out of control spending.
Yeah, Emily, this is a really important topic. I've long thought we should focus more on this in the Congress, and I do so in part because of my background as a small businessman. I was the head of the Outward Bound School here for 10 years, and I pretty quickly realized if you didn't have a strong balance sheet, which is a part of having a profitable operation year in and year out. So in other words, your profit and loss statement, some would call it your P&L, is healthy. You couldn't pursue your mission if you didn't have the strong financial backing. And I've been worried about the federal government's finances for many years. What can we do? Well, we ought to reinstate pay-as-you-go policies, which worked very well in the 90s. We all remember that we had surpluses in the 90s. Pay-as-you-go means if you cut taxes or you raise spending, you got to offset it. You've got to find the revenue to do that. We ought to have a line item veto for the president. 40-some governors have a line item veto. And I proposed that idea in the House. We actually passed it in the House in 2005, if my memory's right, with Republicans and Democrats alike. I'm going to work with Senator McCain to push that idea in the Senate and hopefully through the House in this Congress. We ought to eliminate earmarks. This is a controversial topic. Some people suggest earmarks are a small percentage of the federal budget. I say, yes, you're right, but they consume an enormous amount of our time as legislators, generating them, managing them, watching them. And once you're wedded to an earmark, as legitimate and beneficial as it might be, then you're committed to voting for big spending bills, whether they're smart and right or not. And that's one of the many reasons I think we ought to eliminate earmarks. There are other ways to generate federal funding into states through the grant and formula programs. And then we finally, in the biggest sense possible, ought to take up the Bowles-Simpson Commission ideas for reducing on a sustainable basis over the next decade our long-term debt and our annual deficits down to certain percentages. Those are four very concrete ways in which we could get a hold of our budget situation. It's immoral, if I can end on this note, to do what we're doing long-term because we're passing all that debt on to people who don't have a vote. That's our children. And in the process, we're going to weaken our country, and we won't be able to make the kind of investments that we need to make to keep our country strong and protect our freedoms and the liberties and our way of life that we hold so dear.
Senator, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Just last week, Senator Udall joined the Senate's Select Committee on Intelligence, which oversees the agencies that provide information affecting the vital interests of our nation.
And with the addition of the Intelligence Committee, he now serves on 4 committees: Armed Services, Energy and Natural Resources, and the Special Committee on Aging.